All right, Ginchy, good to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Before we talk about this fucking fantastic record that the Oxys made, I wanted to ask you about your upbringing, like where you grew up and how you got started in music, and like your childhood and when you started playing and stuff.
Well, I grew up in Illinois, pretty much in a cornfield in the middle of nowhere. And I learned how to play guitar probably for lack of better things to do. I had a great grandfather who was a bluegrass fiddle player, and he used to pass instruments down to me. So I kind of always had those laying around as a kid. And then, when I was probably 11 or 12, I started taking an interest in it and learning how to play. And one of my uncles gave me an acoustic guitar, and I started learning how to play on that. Just kind of taught myself, picking up, guitar here and there when I could. It wasn't as easy back then because, obviously the internet did not exist. So it's not like I could pop on YouTube and watch instructional videos or anything like that. So basically, I subscribed to Guitar Magazine, and I would read those articles, and then I learned how to read tablature, and then I got to the point where I could teach myself how to play, basically.
What's the time frame when you were a teenager? What are we talking? Which decade here?
When I was a teenager, it would have been the early 90s.
Early 90s.
Yeah, early mid 90s.
And you said you grew up in Illinois. Did you stay there long, or when did you leave Illinois?
Man, I stayed in Illinois until I was maybe late 20s.
And then you went to Texas?
I moved to Austin, and then I didn't stay in Austin that long, and then I moved to Santa Cruz, California.
Oh,
stayed out there for a hot minute, and then I moved back to Austin where property was affordable.
What made you go to Austin in the first place? Because it was a vibrant music scene and South by Southwest and all that stuff. I mean, what drew you to Austin?
I had played in Austin a couple of times before I moved down here, obviously like South by Southwest and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Being out on tour, I would come through Austin, and I liked the city at that time. It was a lot different than it is now, but I enjoyed the city, and I honestly, I was just over Illinois. That was, unless you're in Chicago, there's just not a whole lot to do there.
Yeah, Austin became totally overpopulated. I used to go to South by Southwest every year, and I remember going there in the 80s and 90s, and it was awesome. And now it's just so populated down there. I can't believe, man, how populated it got. Going back for a second here, when did you start playing in bands? How old were you, and who were some of your early bands?
When I started playing in bands, I was probably 14, 15 years old. And like I said, where I grew up, there weren't a lot of kids that played around me. I was pretty limited to who could actually play, which, is few and far between. But one of my close friends was a drummer. So that was great. I would always play with him. And then we would find a bass player wherever we could. It might be a neighboring town, it depended.
It sounds like you were in the middle of nowhere.
I was totally in the middle of nowhere. I was in central Illinois. I mean, there's just nothing there. There's literally nothing there but cornfields.
I've driven through Illinois myself many times, stopped in some of those cities there. I was looking at some of the early bands that you were in, and I'm wondering which one of these bands was like your first. There was Swamp Ass, the Bulimics, the Flash Boys. Is that the order of the bands that you were in?
The bands that actually wrote music and put out records, yes. Swamp Ass was really the first one that I did, and we put out a record on Reptilian that was out of Baltimore at that time. That was our first record, and we played all over the country and did some touring and stuff. Got to do some neat things. We you know, we played some super cool clubs in this country. We played CBGB, which was neat. We played at the Metro in Chicago, which is another legendary
Yeah.
club. So I mean, we got to do some cool stuff, you know, but it was really just an experiment for me at that time.
Were you always a primary like songwriter and guitar player in your early bands, or is that something you picked up? Because I read that you started writing more as you went into the, you know, more famous bands. I mean, were you writing right from the beginning?
I mean, I would always write from the beginning, but the thing about, like, for instance, Swamp Ass, I wrote a couple songs with Swamp Ass, but you know, in that band, the singer played guitar as well. So, I mean, the singer came in and he would just have songs, you know, so we
Right.
would play them.
Cool. So the other bands that you're in, the Bulimics and the Flash Boys, did they record as well?
I didn't. I wasn't an original member of either one of those bands. The Bulimics I played with for, you know, probably 10 years, and I did record with the Bulimics. The Bulimics, they started around, I think, 95, 96. They were an Austin band, and when I moved back from California, I knew those guys, and they were just like, "Hey, we need a guitar player. You want to do it?" So I did it, and you know, it was fun and it was easy for me. And then somewhere along the lines, the Flash Boys contacted me. Well, it was actually the singer Frankie asked me if I would play with that band, but by that time they were also, you know, they had also been through a couple lineup changes, so
Right.
it was real short-lived, you know.
Yeah, and then I noticed it was right around 2015, I guess, where you hooked up with Sylvain. Sylvain, I mean, how did that all happen? Were you like I imagine you must have been a fan of the New York Dolls when you're younger.
Oh, of course. Well, prior to playing with Sylvain, I was actually playing in Cheetah Chrome's solo band.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah, and that happened before the Sylvain thing. And so I was playing in Cheetah Chrome's solo band, and Sylvain just called me out of the blue one day. I think he got my number from Cheetah and asked if I would book him some shows and do some shows with him.
That's cool. I got to know Syl pretty well because a band I used to manage actually did a national tour with the New York Dolls when they reformed. And he's a great guy. I booked a couple of solo shows for him in Boston in around 2003, 4. And then the New York Dolls got back together after that. He's a really nice guy. I was really sad when he passed away. You actually got to develop a relationship with him at the later end of his life, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I can't, I don't have no, I could go on about him all day. You know, he's just one of the nicest guys I ever met.
He stayed with you for a little while, I think I saw in the bio.
Yeah, he would like, we would do shows in the South, and he would come down and he would stay at my house. And at one point we did a residency here in Austin, and he stayed at my house for about a month.
Wow, that's cool.
I don't know. Yeah, and he was staying here, and yeah, we would just play shows and hang out and play guitar. He did a lot of sewing at the time. So he would sew, he would go out and shop, you know, at vintage shops around town and stuff like that.
Yeah, he made those hats that he used to wear, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I remember reading about that somewhere. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I got a couple of those.
Nice.
The Truth and Soul hats. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a really nice guy. I got to hang out with him a few times, and all those, you know, Joe Hansen too. Nice. Darren Hill, I've known for a long time. I don't know if you ever met Darren, who was the manager of the Dolls, but that was kind of my connection into those guys when they reformed. So then after that, because I'm trying to move through your career here a little bit, the Dead Boys, when they reformed, you actually became a member of the reformed version of the band, correct?
Yeah, I did. And again, going back, that was kind of just as a result of me being in Cheetah Chrome's solo band at the time. I was playing with Cheetah, and he told me one day, he's like, hey, I'm gonna do this 40th anniversary with the Dead Boys, you know, are you good for this? And I just said, yeah, sure, you know.
Yeah, you know, I always, when people talk about what's your favorite punk rock song ever, Sonic Reducer's always like I have that against, you know, ahead of the English bands even that I love, like Stiff Little Fingers and Undertones and all those bands, because I thought that song was just probably the most prolific rock song. So you got to play that like every night for a while, didn't you?
I played that every night for a long time. You know, I mean, we were even doing that in Cheetah Chrome's solo band. So yeah, I did that one for several years.
How could you not enjoy playing that tune, man? You know, it's such a good one. All right, I'm going to fast forward here. This is a really good story because in 2019, I know a lot of cities do this. They have these lotteries where they get a bunch of band members and you pick out a band. And you and Punk Rock Phil from Nowhere Bound band, you guys ended up in the same band and you guys bonded. Why don't you tell the story about how that whole thing came down? Because that's a pretty cool story right there.
Well, I lived in Austin for years, and a ton of my friends would always do the punk rock lottery, you know, and
yeah,
we'd all just rave about how much fun they were having doing this. And yeah, I think it was 2019. One of the guys that ran that, or someone was like, hey, you should do the punk rock lottery this year, because at the time there wasn't much going on, and I agreed to do it. So they just throw everybody's name in a hat. They have you categorized by what you play.
Yeah.
So they pull names out of a hat. They put together a band. I think you have a couple of weeks to put together some original songs and a cover song. And then those bands go to a club and there's a panel of judges, crowd, and you perform your set. And then, you know, whoever wins, I guess. And I did that. We came into practice. We didn't even practice yet. The first thing I did was I got everyone's contact information, their phone numbers. So I introduced myself, and somebody's like, hey, I got some song ideas. I'm like, hey, I got some song ideas. So I emailed everyone some song ideas. And before I'd even met Phil, he sent me a song, one of my songs back, and I listened to it, and I was kind of caught off guard. I was like, oh, wow, I like your voice. This is actually really good. And I had tried to work with some other singers before, and it just really wasn't jiving. And I liked what he did. So I just asked him, like, hey, you want to try another one? He's like, sure. And that's how it started. It just started snowballing. And I just kept sending him songs, you know.
So how did it go when you guys played the show?
Oh, we won.
You won. Awesome.
Yeah. We won. So it was fun. It was fun. Like everybody had told me, it was a great time. Yeah. So I think two of the songs that are on that record were actually played that night.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. So it would have been the second song on the record, Motel Hell, and the second to last song on the record, Anxieties. We played those in our set that night.
That's cool. You know, and as the story goes, you guys ended up bonding and you started working together. And then you talk, I understand you had written some songs while touring with Cheetah Chrome, or maybe even Sylvain. I didn't write that down, but you brought some of the songs that you already had to Phil, and then you guys worked these songs out together. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had like 100 songs demoed maybe at the time.
Wow.
Maybe more than that. And so I just the material was kind of already there for an album, you know. And so I just started bouncing songs off Phil, and we started demoing songs. And then we started sequencing the songs, and I was like, oh, well, you know, I think we need this kind of song for the record, and maybe we'd write another one. But anyway, you know, A Date With The Oxys that's what it's a result of. So yeah, I would say from 2011, 12 I mean, I'd been writing songs and banking them kind of the whole time pretty steadily.
Do you have like a home studio that you record in?
Yeah, I do.
So you do your own recording at home, and then, I mean, imagine it's all digital now. You could tell I'm old because I still think that people still have tape machines. I wish everyone had a 2-inch tape machine, but
I wish I had a 2-inch tape machine. Actually, I don't. They're so big and bulky, and my studio space in my house is pretty confined to a specific area. And
there's a couple studios in Boston where I am where you can go and record. Like, a lot of people like to record drums on 2-inch tape and then do the rest of the record and mix it all together. I'm not an engineering expert, but I know that I've seen the 2-inch tape every now and then at a couple of studios, not like it used to be, but so you guys had a lot of songs to pick from when you narrowed it down for the A Date with the Oxys record. Now, did you have the deal already with Deadbeat, or did you like put the whole record together and then do the deal?
No, I sent him the record. It was done when I sent it to him. I just sent it to him, and basically I shopped it to like a couple different labels I knew and stuff, and we had good interest in everything. But at the time, it was really hard to get a record out of the plants because they were so backed up. I believe it still is that way. I don't know. I don't deal with that end of it, but I know we waited quite a while to get our record out of the plant. But that was part of the reason I went with Deadbeat. I like what Tom does at Deadbeat. He's done it for a long time, but he seemed to be able to get it out the fastest. And we'd already spent so much time confined to our homes and stuff. Like I was out of patience at that point. I just wanted to get a record out. So we did that, and it's worked out well. I'm very appreciative of what Tom has done with us and helped us out. He's got another record right now that he's sending to the plant. It may already be at the plant. I'm not certain.
Your second record?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So you guys already have another record in the can.
Well, we have 3 records in the can.
Whoa. That's good, man. You do it. You had that catalog. You used it. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, after the first, we kind of have a system now. It's like after we did the first record, we demoed another, I don't know, 75 songs. And then we, picked what we wanted for the second record. And then immediately after that was done, we just started recording more songs for a third record. So yeah, we have a lot with all the leftover. We could probably do a fourth record with all the leftover songs,
A box set.
Yeah, I guess.
What about the other guys? I should ask you about that. How did you get the rest of the band together?
So Gabriel, who is a librarian, he's the bass player.
Nice.
He's a librarian, and he's also has a traveling puppet show. He played with me in the Cheetah Chrome solo band, and he also played with me in Sylvain and the Sylvains, which is what we called ourselves.
Yes.
Obviously. And he's kind of my go-to guy, I played with him for so long. I give him songs and I don't have to worry about anything. He's responsible. He learns the music, he performs it well. So he came on board, and then the current drummer, Rob Williamson, he was in a band called Nowhere Bound.
Yeah, that's what Phil was in that band too, right?
Phil was in that band for a hot minute. I mean, it was kind of Phil joined the band during the pandemic, or right at the beginning of the pandemic, I think. So I think he did like one streaming show with them.
They're a cool band. I checked out the video they had out. They're very, very liberal band for sure, with their approach to everything, the way they write. Mm-hmm. That's one thing I did notice about them, which is good for me. I didn't care. I liked it. I liked what they were singing about. So he was in the Nowhere band longer than Phil was, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah. Like Rob was in the band for quite some time. He did all the records and all the touring with them and everything. And like I said, towards the end of the beginning of the pandemic, I think that's when Phil started to join him, and they had a show scheduled, I think, and it got canceled maybe because of the pandemic. But yeah, he did the one streaming show with him, so it was really a hot minute for him.
I mean, it's hard to talk about the pandemic because it like slowed everyone's life down and made everyone's lives crazy. Did it really start affecting you bad? I mean, when you were locked down, were you like able to get work done? I mean, what were you doing during the lockdown?
I was playing music the entire time. I mean, I was writing music. You know, I didn't have anything to do, so I was just sit there and record music and write songs. And you know, I'm married, and I have a 10-year-old, and my wife has an 11-year-old boy. So the family was at home, and we would just find things to do. We were playing a lot of Monopoly, you know.
You live you live right in the city of Austin?
I live in Austin, yes. I live on the south side.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been there, but you know, 6th Street and all the good food, good places. I worked on a movie down there in 1991, actually, and I was there for a month. So I really get to know it. But like I said, it's a different kind of place now, you know, than it used to be. A lot more people down there. I really, really liked the video that you guys did for Liars, Betrayers, and Spies. It's really good. How did you come up? I mean, what was your old plan with that? Did you want to just do a live video like that? Did you guys come up with the concept, or did you work with your label, and how'd that all come together?
That was kind of, so the lead up to our record was really bizarre. We didn't know when it was coming out of the plant.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to get a release date was a logistical nightmare. And then also in July, we had our first show scheduled in New Orleans at Creepy Fest, which is a local festival thing they do there. And a couple of weeks before the festival, our singer had a medical incident where he ended up being in a coma for, I don't know, 8 to 10 days, maybe.
Oh, shit.
And it didn't look good. Fortunately, he made it, obviously. But so the first show we did, we had a replacement singer.
And this was this past July?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had a replacement singer, and the replacement singer, ironically, was the other guitar player from that band, Nowhere Bound. Natchez Taylor. So Natchez a friend of mine. I've played in one of Natchez bands before. He's played with Rob and other bands. So it was kind of like, well, are we going to be able to do this show? And it was just like, well, I guess we'll call Natchez and ask him, and if he can do it, we'll do it. But he's the only guy we could think of that we thought could pull it off. So he did that. Phil recovered, but it took him a while to get his strength back, you know. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
And our first show was on Halloween in Austin. At any rate, he had gotten out of the hospital, and we're like, oh shit, we need a video. You know, we were really ill prepared, and so we just had some friends who recommended a video guy to us here in town. I think he's the front of the house guy for Goo Goo Dolls.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, his name's Adrian. And I called him, and I'm just like, hey, can you do a short notice video for us? I'm like, just set us up in whatever room and we'll just play live. I mean, that was all there was to it. I'm not really into the scripted videos and all that jazz.
Concept videos, you mean?
Yeah, it's I don't have the patience for it. Just throw me in a room and let me play and record it, and there it is.
Well, you guys seem like you're a great live band. I mean, just from watching you in the video, I could tell I would like it. It's that old school, like guitar, punky, you know, it's got aggression. I really like your record a lot. Do you plan on going on tour? I mean, do you have a plan for a tour?
Well, this is something we have recently been talking about. You know, initially when we started the band, I didn't even know what we were going to do with the band. me and Phil were making music, and at the time we couldn't leave our house. So I was content doing that. And I hadn't even thought about touring. I was just like, well, we can't do anything. Let's make a record, you know, and and then we made another record. And then I started thinking about it and playing the songs for my friends. Some of my friends were liking it. So I was like, okay, I think we're on to something. We put the record out, and then it's like, okay, well, we can still just put records out. But then I get people emailing me, hey, when are you guys coming here? When are you coming here? You know, when are you coming to town? So we're working on that right now, trying to figure out what we're going to do. But one thing I knew I didn't want to do was I didn't want to just get in the van and hit the road right away without laying some sort of foundation for the band first, because I mean, that was fun when I was 20, you know, it's not so enjoyable anymore.
I can relate.
Yeah. Like the whole DIY thing for me is not.
Were you part of the Dead Boys thing that started and then Cheetah Chrome got sick and they had to cancel it? Were you on that?
No, I wasn't on that. He's switched up bands, because when we originally did the 40th anniversary, Johnny Blitz, the original drummer, also doing that with us. And Ricky Rapp from the Trash Brats was playing bass for us. And when Johnny left the Dead Boys, me and Ricky also went by the wayside. So he had a new lineup for this particular outing.
It didn't last very long because Susie Moon, who's coming on the show in a few weeks, her band was opening, and by the time they got to Boston, he was, I don't know what happened, but he got ill or something, and they canceled the dates on that tour. So it wouldn't have been a very long tour for you, but hopefully he's okay. So you're just cautiously optimistic about going on the road, basically, and you're just waiting for the right opportunity. Do you have a booking agent? You know?
Yeah, we've talked to an agent who will book us, you know, if we want to go out and things like that. So I don't know. I think we're looking at possibly doing some shows in the Midwest in May, doing the West Coast in August, September, and then the East Coast in November.
Cool.
That's kind of what we're looking at right now. So we'll get that underway here pretty quick.
That's cool. I wanted to just ask you about your personal music and what you like. Do you listen to a lot of music? Do you listen to records? Do you use streaming? I mean, how do you listen to music? And is there anything you've been, are you into the old stuff? You like new stuff? I mean, what do you listen to?
So yes, I listen to an obscene amount of music. And for the most part, I like 70s music. Of course, I grew up in the 80s, so I love the 80s pop stuff. Some of the late 80s, you know, with all the hair metal bands, like some of those bands are okay. I probably enjoyed that a lot more when I was living in the moment as a child. The 90s, I don't really have much love for 90s music.
When you say the 70s, are you talking early classic rock? Or are you talking late punk rock 70s?
But both. I love all of it.
Yeah, me too, man.
You know, I love all of it. I mean, I listen to stuff where I tell my friends and they just look at me and roll their eyes, you know, like I'll have on a Leonard Skinner album or something and they'll be like, what is this? Like, but I really like that whole New York scene in the late 70s, all those bands.
You like Blondie and the Ramones and Talking Heads and those bands?
Yeah, I love all that stuff, but I also love the early New York stuff. The Velvet Underground, big on the Stooges, MC5, of course, all the forefathers of punk rock, I guess you say. I love the Heartbreakers. I love the Canadian band Teenage Head.
Good one.
At the same time, I love AC/DC.
You do vinyl?
Yeah.
Vinyl? Yeah, me too, man. I'm total. Do you ever listen to streaming or are you just on the records?
No, I do listen to streaming because vinyl possesses so much space in my house that I'm almost tapped out there. I listen to a lot of streaming radio, you know, right now, especially there's a lot of radio that's picked up the Oxys. So, you know, those guys hit me up, they'll be like, hey, I'm playing you Tuesday night. So I'll tune in and listen to their entire show because I also like to see what else they're playing. You know, I get turned on to new bands all the time that way. Recently, we've been getting some play on Little Steven's Underground radio, which is incredible. Speedy John played us, and then Rodney Bingenheimer has played us. Which,
Rodney on the Rock.
Yeah, Rodney on the Rock. It's like when I was first told that, I mean, my eyes lit up. I'm like, oh, like wow, like that was a very proud moment for me. You know, that guy's like one of the most famous DJs ever. So to get played by him was extremely cool. And then he's played us again since. So,
well, I really like your record. And when I heard, I mean, I get a lot of stuff sent to me. And when I heard yours, we immediately went out and talked to your publicist and said, let's do it, man. Because I really feel like you're onto something here with this band that's really good. And thanks a lot, man, for taking the time to talk to us. And good luck. I hope you make it to Boston someday. You know, I do. I think you guys would do well here.
Yeah, I mean, I played in Boston a bunch. You know, over the years, I mean, we played Middle East a bunch. Dead played up there. Swamp Ass even played at the Middle East back in the day, and Alston. I think that's when I first met Ken McIntyre, Sleaze Grinder.
Sleaze is a good friend of mine. You know the Sleaze, huh? That's cool. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah. So he wrote about the first time that we went to Boston, he wrote a feature on us in the Weekly Dig.
Oh yeah. It's not here anymore, but that was a good paper.
Yeah, I still have that. I still have a copy of that.
If Sleaze Grinder likes you, man, he's all about the punkified blues and the dirty, grungy bands, you know. Yeah, he's a good guy, real good guy.
Yeah, he said he said he reviewed this record for Classic Rock Mag.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting for that to come out. Should be interesting.
Well, you got the right Boston connection, that's for sure, man. Because Ken's a great guy, man.
Hopefully we'll get out there though.
Cool. Hey, thanks a lot, man. Good luck to you, man. Really good record.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.